Meeting to order at 7 o'clock. I'd like to inform all board member attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. We'll rise for the pledge for those who want to rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I give up on that. I don't know the group pledge. All right, roll call.
Mrs. Farber.
Here.
Mrs. Junk.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Mr. Lawler.
Here.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Here.
Mr. Rivas.
Here.
Mrs. Witt.
Here.
All right, with 7 members present, we have a quorum. Would anyone like to move something from consent to new business? No? Okay, so we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Junk.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Farber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to Superintendent Salutes.
Yeah, we'll start with Nathan Schmidt here in a second. Mr. Schmidt and his family. If you recall, at the last board meeting, we approved his contract and candidacy, and he did communicate with the Harder staff and the Harder parents via a video and an email. So now we'll just give him a minute to introduce his family as hopefully they can keep it together for a few more minutes before they. So Mr. Schmidt, we look forward to meeting your family.
Thank you. So hello, everybody. So very excited to actually speak to everybody this evening. I do want to introduce some very important people in my life. So starting here on my right is my oldest child, my daughter, Aria.
Hello.
She will be going into 3rd grade this coming year. The middle one here is my son, TJ, who will be entering kindergarten. And then the one now waving and having his bottle here is Aiden, who is a future knight, but he's still got a little bit to go. So he's only 2. And then, of course, I have my amazing wife here also on my right, who helps hold us all together. So very excited for all of us to be joining the Kaneland family, and couldn't be prouder to be a knight.
Hello.
Thank you, Nathan. Welcome to Schmidt family. And
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Nathan.
we look forward to hopefully soon seeing you in person when we can, and opportunity for you to get to physically meet your parents and students and welcome you to the Kaneland family. So nice
Thank
to
you.
meet all of you, and we look forward to seeing you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Night-night. And then next, our other salute is, well, in addition to Mr. Schmidt, as you just saw in the consent agenda, we do have the candidacy for Sarah Versa for the principal at John Stewart. So she is not with us tonight, but she will be at the next meeting, and she will introduce her family, and she is following the same protocols that she'll have a video that she's going to set up to the Stewart family and videos to staff, students also, so they can get to know Sam a little bit more than they already know her. So meet her and see her again shortly. Salute tonight is Mr. Faulkner. He is here to share on behalf of Harder and their redesignation for schools to watch. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Faulkner.
Well, thank you, Dr. Layden and Board of Education. I was having issues with my microphone on my headphones earlier today, so if something is not working, just wave me down and let me know, or put it in the chat. One of the things I always talk about is what an honor and privilege it is to stand in front of you and deliver great news. I can't stand in front of you, but hey, we'll settle for this virtual meeting instead. But Harder Middle School was designated for a 3rd time as the Illinois School to Watch, which is a national school movement that exemplifies what a true middle school based on research should be doing. And it is a pretty grueling process. It's not easy. It requires the entire staff to take a rubric, a survey. We actually create a secondary team to help with us put together the application, talk about what we do really well. And then it concludes after we send our application with a site visit with, we had 5 different evaluators this year come through our building, and it's extensive. They talk with parents, with students, with staff, with administration, just about everyone. It is a grueling process, and it is such an honor to stand here and say that I'm a part of something special at Kaneland Harder Middle School. Not too many people can say they've been designated 3 different times now over 9 years as a school to watch. And I think I'll kind of end it with this is one of the evaluators, and I'll paraphrase a little bit, described Harder Middle School as an exemplary school. And this is what a middle school and every middle school should be like, because every educator values working with this age group and they are prepared to do so. And he talked about all the different things we did academically, but he stressed more than academics is where we shine, and the amount of praise and I'm proud of you statements that he heard the staff throughout the building. He was in amazement. And I'll say this, I was an evaluator at another school about a week after our evaluation, and he was also there. And he pulled me aside during lunch and said, I'm still talking about your school down at Illinois State, because he's a professor in the middle level grades department of education. So to know a week later he was still talking to his colleagues about Harder Middle School and how impressed he was, I think was great. So it's just, once again, to me, it's a testament of what our staff and what our parents and what our entire learning community is willing to do to educate the middle school child. And I can't thank you guys enough for your support as we do this. And an honor like this is really great. We were supposed to go to Washington, D.C. to be honored at a ceremony, but that was canceled, unfortunately. They're looking to reschedule for it in December, and I'll talk to Mr. Schmidt about that. So thank you. I appreciate everyone.
Hey, Brian, real quick, can you talk a little bit about numbers? I know that sometimes there's a misconception that the redesignation is a given. Can you just share with the board a little bit about that piece?
Yeah, so there were, I think this is a record. I believe there were 17 schools in the state that were up for designation, and seven of them did not receive a designation. So it's not a guarantee. It's, like I said, it's a pretty grueling process, and everyone has to be doing a significant job in their roles. The students, the staff, the parents, the communities that we serve, everyone needs to have some kind of significant role to make this happen. And it's evident that we do in Kaneland, and that's what makes it so special, is that every single group, every single stakeholder is extremely important to what we do to educate the middle school child. And it shows because, unfortunately, yeah, there were 7 schools in the state that did not get designated, and that's tough for those schools to hear. Hi, Maddie. I see you.
Brian, thank you to you. Kind of an interesting segue with Mr. Schmidt and his family here, and then you also here sharing on the same night. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your direction and leadership over the last 5 years. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And then the other 2 that we do have, one of them, Dr. Mumm, is here, but we're going to hold off till the next meeting on the 11th. She'll be sharing, or we'll be recognizing our district as a salute as part of Learning Forward conference that we attend every year. We received some news there, so that's kind of a wet type for the next meeting that we'll hear. And also, we're trying to figure out the first meeting in May. We always recognize our retirees, so we're trying to figure out as we do that virtually, what's the best way in which to do that. So we may wait till we're back on site at a later date. So that will follow soon. So that's what you'll see coming up. And again, thank you to Mr. Faulkner. And that's all we have, President Sparber.
Thank you. All right, so we will move on to, do we have public comment tonight, Dr. Layden?
We do not.
Okay, so I will skip my spiel. We do not have public comment tonight, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda tonight consists of the following action items: the approval of accounts payable and payroll April 2020, approval of minutes of the April 13th, 2020 virtual meeting, approval of resignations, terminations, and employment of staff, approval of authorization to submit consolidated district plan, approval of board meeting dates for 2020-21, approval of summer projects bid results, approval of new adoption funding for 2020-21, and the informational item 2019 final tax extension report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We'll say, Ryan, Gail, you want to be the second?
Here.
Awesome. And is there a roll call?
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Mr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Rivas,
Aye.
Mrs. Sparber,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
and Mrs. Junk.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0, and we'll move on to the reorganization of the board. So I forget, Todd, if this is a vote to make you president pro tem, is that how we do it?
It is. There is a vote, a nomination, and a roll call for that.
All right.
Seems very formal, but that is the Robert's Rules of Order for this.
So start with a nomination. So we nominate you.
Yeah, someone nominates me.
I will nominate Dr. Layden as the president pro tem. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. And so that's the nomination. Are there any other nominations? I guess that's the question at hand. Shockingly enough, no. So does that turn into a motion, or do I need to, that's the motion then? That
can be the motion. You can take.
can be the motion. All right. So then is it just a roll call?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Rivas,
Aye.
Mrs. Sparber,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mrs. Junk,
Aye.
and Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. So Dr. Layden is president pro tem.
Yep. And with that, thank you, Mrs. Sparber. With that, we now do our elections first for the board president, and I'm president pro tem for just that office. And then when we're done, we will take a roll call vote for any nominations for office of president, and then we turn it back over to our new president. So with that, I'd like to open the table for nominations for the Kaneland board president.
I would like to nominate Mrs. Sparber.
Thank you. We have one nomination for Shauna Sparber. Are there any others? Hearing none, with that, I'll close the nominations for board president. Mrs. Sturkle, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Mrs.
Do we need a
Pavlik,
Do we need a second on that?
I'm sorry, we do need a second. Sorry about that.
I'll second.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron.
okay, Mrs. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Rivas,
Yes.
Mrs. Sparber,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mrs. Junk,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Thank you. With the vote of 7-0, the motion is carried. Congratulations to President Sparber. I will turn the meeting back over to you and let you continue for the vice president and secretary.
All right. Well, you did it much better than I will, so we'll see how the rest of this goes. The awkwardness of the annual stuff. Okay, so we'll open up the floor for nominations for vice president. Are there nominations for vice president?
I nominate Ryan Carey to the office of vice president.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and are there any other nominations for vice president? All right, so seeing none, I think that can turn into the motion, and we will take a roll call.
Mr. Rivas,
Sure.
Mrs. Sparber,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mrs. Junk,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Mr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. So we'll move on to so Mr. Carey was elected vice president. We'll move on to the election of the board secretary. Are there nominations for the position of secretary? And I will nominate Gail Pavlik.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations for secretary? Okay, so I will close those nominations and we'll move to a roll call for secretary.
Mrs. Sparber,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mrs. Junk,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Mr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas,
Aye, I keep hitting the wrong button, sorry.
Thank you. All right, so motion carries 7-0. So Mrs. Pavlik will again be the board secretary. So I think now we're going to have some discussion as to committees. I think the main, obviously with the committee structure changing, I think the main discussion for tonight will be Insurance Committee, Hall of Fame, and Kaneland Foundation. I don't know if anyone has any specific comments they want to make about those. I think when we talked last, it was mostly about CAC, FAC, those things. But does anyone have any comments about those? Hall of Fame, Insurance Foundation?
You mean, Shauna, excuse me, do you mean
Sure.
general questions about how they're organized, or do you just want to know who?
Like the liaison, if we want to do the liaison the same way, like one person's a liaison for each of those, or?
Okay. I would like to see at some point, and I don't know that it can happen right now, but I would like to see at some point that the insurance committee has more than one board member, and so that there's more of a balance of people that do not carry the insurance on the insurance committee.
Is that something that would be open for more than one board member to attend if they chose to, or is that not how that would work in the insurance committee?
Julianne, can you provide specifics on the bylaws? Because I think last year we had the same discussion, and we looked for the availability of others, but I don't think others could attend during that time. So Julianne, can you share a little more?
Sure. I would believe that anybody is welcome to attend and serve as the liaison for the Health Insurance Committee. There are no bylaws associated with the committee. The only reason the committee exists is because we have two contracts that require a committee, and so it's negotiated with the associations. But historically, I have always co-chaired the committee, or my position has, with the chief negotiator from the KEA. With regard to the board liaisons, there's no reason why more cannot attend. The only thing I would suggest is that we be diligent in making sure that we are not out of compliance with the Open Meetings Act. But what I would say is that Gail doesn't have a vote in the insurance committee, but regardless, any action that is taken at the insurance committee is only a recommendation to the Board of Education. But I believe we could have 3 members participate at any time and still be okay with the Open Meetings Act.
Is it 3 or 2?
3.
3?
I don't know, that 3 is a majority of a quorum.
Yeah.
I thought 4
So
was.
then
I thought it was a quorum, not a majority.
Quorum's 5, so the majority of a quorum's 3. That's what I was thinking too, Teresa.
Okay, so then I apologize. It's
It might
2
be
then.
2.
We could have
Okay.
one more.
So is that something that the board is interested in, to have, I don't know if we want one regular serving and one open to whoever speaks first could go, or any other?
I think part of the issue is that it's held, during the day, and most people can't go. And rather than just say, oh, well, nobody else can go, maybe, you should think about changing the time of the committee meetings.
To 7 p.m.
Yeah, I can't do, I know you guys meet now during the day. That's not something that's
Right.
available to me. I could do later at night, like a normal board meeting, but it's always been just.
And this is all just, just in case other board members, I'm not saying we have to do it. I'm just bringing it up for discussion, and maybe nobody else thinks we need anybody else on there.
It typically meets at 4 o'clock, but I certainly can attempt to change it.
Any other board members have interest in being someone who regularly attends or occasionally attends?
I would, if it were at a time that I could go.
How often does it meet?
About once a month, but not during the summer and not December and not March.
So it's 3, 5, 7 meetings.
7 meetings.
Yeah, about that.
Evening's the only thing that work for me as well. Like
Well,
any other time.
Are we just assuming that Gail wants to continue serving on the committee?
Well, that'll be the other
I
question,
have no
right?
problem with it at all, guys.
I'd say the more informed members of the board we have, the better off we are. So if Teresa's willing to go, I'd support it.
Likewise, they can support our timeframe.
Dr. Fuchs, what kind of steps would you need to take to shift the times? Would you be able to do that into the fall? What kind of communication would it take to ensure that that's done successfully?
We only have one more meeting in May this year that's already been set. And then I just need to talk with my co-chair, Susie Axel, who is next year going to be transitioning to Patty Reeder. So both of them will be attending and work through the process. There really is no established process for changing that.
Okay.
What Susie is saying though, is that no other district committee with teachers on there meets at night. And so we probably need to have a little bit more conversation. Additionally, we always bring Hub into our meetings.
Right.
And so I would need to check with our broker and make sure that they're available in the evenings as well.
Who do you bring? Who attends the meeting?
A representative from Hub International.
Hub, okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
So does it make sense to table the insurance? I mean, I think to leave May the way it is with Gail, if she's willing to attend, and then for Julianne to look into scheduling
Going into it next year.
for the fall. Is that good with everybody?
Just more information and we can decide later.
Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So then we can talk about Hall of Fame and the foundation. Maybe Hall of Fame is the most similar to insurance. I don't know. So does anyone have any strong preferences with Hall of Fame?
No.
I don't.
Hall of Fame meets quarterly, and the basically the 4 meetings, 2 of them are to look over the applications and we vote, and then the other meeting is to review the process and the dates. So it's 4 meetings. They're 4 evenings a year, and Gail has been the board representative on that, but that's kind of the specifics of the meetings. They're quarterly, and it's 1 board member. At least it typically has been based on the bylaws.
And when do they attend?
It's an evening meeting at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock. It's either 6 o'clock starts or 7 o'clock starts. I think we've tried to move it to 6 to accommodate some of the families that had children that wanted to start a little bit earlier. But again, those could be 7 o'clock too, based on availability of the board member.
All right. So I guess are there people interested in Hall of Fame? Gail or Pedro, is it one of you two?
Oh, yeah, I have no problems being on it at all. It's kind of a confidential group. So, I mean, you know, we don't talk outside of the meetings as to what's, you know, basically going on. So.
Gail wants to be
So
on
should we
there.
go with Gail? Or with Pedro?
I'm fine.
Thank you, Gail.
Okay.
Not a problem.
I didn't hear some of that. Okay, awesome. Foundation, the only thing I'm not sure what the foundation is Todd, would you foresee the board liaison sticking around, or I know they're going through some structure changes. Do you see that being eliminated at some point?
Yeah, we have an update a little bit later to share on the foundation. We are continuing with our engagement activity or engagement program with Marquette Hamlin Group. And as part of that, part of what will change or should change is the bylaws. Excuse me. And part of those bylaws will probably be amended to not have a board member serving on there, since we don't have a board member on any of our other 501c3s. So it'll probably fall along those same lines. So if that's something that, if Shauna wanted to continue for the next 2 or 3 meetings, or if somebody would like to for the next 2 or 3 meetings, I would imagine the next bylaw iteration would not have the requirement of a board member being one of the committee members.
So I'm guessing that's August, September-ish. I don't know, sometime.
Yes.
It'll probably be eliminated. So is everyone fine just staying status quo till August? Or if you want to be on, you could, I think, be a foundation member too. But everyone comfortable with that staying status quo?
Sure.
Sure.
For the couple
Thank
months.
you, Shauna. I think that would be helpful since you've been through this last year of this hopeful transition program. So having heard those conversations, it would probably be best if you did stay. Other board members are welcome to come and observe at any time. But I think if you stay through the transition, that would make the most sense for now.
That sounds good. So I think is that everything we need for J1 or any other?
That's everything, because the board meeting dates were already approved up in I-5 in the consent agenda. So that's all we need for now for J1.
So we'll move on to J2, which is discussion of the health insurance renewal. But just before we start, because I think you guys have some comments to make, I know there was some feedback that on a topic that has more discussion to it, or presumably more than what we just had, that maybe we would want to have people chime in one at a time as I call them. So we're not talking over each other. Is that something we want to try for this topic? People are game, we'll try it. So after Julianne or Todd present, I will call on people, and then at the end, I'll see if anyone has any follow-up questions, and if it implodes, we'll try something different. So J2.
Thank you for that effort, Shauna. Go well. Tim, thank you for bringing up J2. As you know, as part of the, it's in the board packet. Tim will slide through there as Dr. Fuchs walks us through the details. We'll just go through the 3 or 4 pages, and you can ask questions as they come up. And then when it is time for discussion at the end, we can have you kind of manage, organize that so we're not walking on top of each other. So with that, Dr. Fuchs, I'll let you start the presentation.
Okay, very good. Given the online format, I'll try to pause in between sections so that if there are any questions directly related to that individual section, board members have ample time in which to ask those questions. So this year's health insurance renewal is a little bit more challenging for all of us. As we go through it, you'll see why, but it is a significant increase that we're not used to in our district. So let me take you through a couple of the sections to get to that point. The first section is the dependent update. First of all, we are a self-insured health insurance plan, and we have been as long as I've known the plan. I've given you data to show you how many people, both employees and dependents, are on the plan. We currently have 490 employees and about 800 dependents. You'll notice that that's 10 more employees than last year and 12 more dependents. With a self-insured plan, or any plan really, the more people you have on the plan, the more the claim costs go up. And then, but on the other hand, the risk is spread out amongst more. So there's good and bad. At this time, are there any questions on the dependent update? Okay, page 2, please.
Julianne, on the numbers, is that just because of the times, or just change that you've seen throughout? It seems like it's going up every year. Anyway,
it could be a variety of things, Pedro. It could be that people that were not on the plan before, that were already employees, they may have added the plan during open enrollment. It may be that people who are new employees, when they became a new employee to the district, they would have added to the plan. It's just a variety of reasons why people add to the plan.
okay, thank you.
And then depending on what kind of coverage they take, determines then how many dependents they bring with them.
Thank you.
Mhm. The next section is the KEBTF. The KEBTF is the Kaneland Employee Benefit Trust Fund. This is where we hold all of our money. So every payroll, the district puts a portion of money into the trust fund, and the employees who participate in the health insurance plan also contribute to the trust fund. At this time last year, our balance was about 2.4 million. This year, our balance is down to 1.5 million. The recommended level is between 3 and 4 months of claims, which would indicate this year that we should be somewhere between 2.1 and 2.7 million. We generally do not fall below the recommended amount, but we have had a lot of large claims this year, which is very atypical. We have generally been very steady. We might have a large claim every one per year, every other year. We might have a handful, but never like this year. And so that is truly what's causing both the increase that you're going to see in the next section, as well as the decrease in the KEBTF. And so I'm hopeful that throughout the upcoming year, next year, that this year was simply an anomaly, and that by this time next year, that our trust fund has grown again because we're back on the right path to not so large claims. If it's not, the way that we can increase the trust fund in future years, not this year in particular, at least I wouldn't recommend it. In future years, if your increase is more manageable, then you could add a little extra into the increase so that that extra money goes into the trust fund. But I would not recommend that this year based on the renewal that we're seeing. So at this time, are there any questions on the trust fund, how it works, or the balance?
Yes.
Go ahead. I don't know if this roll calling will work. So go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, that's why I didn't know if
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Okay.
Jump in.
Could you elaborate a little bit more about your line in the memo about the 84,000? I didn't quite get what you were trying to convey.
Sure. So the average claim amount increased approximately 84,000 from last year to this year. So last year, our monthly claims were about $600,000 a month. This year, our average claims are $684,000 a month.
Okay.
So that's like the significance of what a hard year we've had.
All right.
Or
And is there
year.
legal requirements of how much money we have to have in this fund?
No legal requirements, just a recommendation. If the fund becomes depleted, the worst case scenario is that we have to go back in the middle of a year and ask the district and the employees to contribute more money. But we don't want to do that. So that's why we try to keep the recommended levels in the trust fund. So this year, where we've had higher claims, we have plenty of money in which to pay those claims. But if your trust fund is depleted down to zero, which hopefully we would never let it get that far, then you would have to go back and ask for more money from both the district and the employees.
Can you ask? I guess that's my question. Or can you require?
Yeah.
So in March, even though someone renewed in January for a certain rate, in March we could go back and tell them we've changed our minds on the rate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you only do that if it goes to absolute zero, or can you do that if you feel like you're in trouble?
I believe you can do it at any point that the board feels that they need to.
Thank you.
I can check on that with Hub, but I don't believe that that's legislated.
All right. And this fund balance increases twice a month when payroll hits? Or money gets added to it?
Yep, that's correct. And then it's offset by the claims for the prior month, really. Because, like if you go to the doctor in March, your bill doesn't get paid till April, similar.
Okay.
All right, then let me carry on with the renewal information. The renewal is built on two different parts: fixed costs and expected claims. Currently, the fixed costs are becoming less and less of our plan because our dollar amounts are growing. So the proportion is smaller. With our fixed costs, it's about 10%, with our claims representing 90%. Our fixed costs actually decreased this year by about 5.9% or $58,000. We get large rebates from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and our rebates the rebate amount has increased, which decreases the cost to the plan. So that's where a lot of the savings was. Our broker, Stephen Morkos, continues to diligently work with Blue Cross Blue Shield to help keep our fixed costs low. So we're thankful for that. Our expected claims, though, are going to increase about 16% for medical and about 5.3% for dental. It's a combination of the current market as well as the claims experience of our group. And as I mentioned earlier, it's hand in hand with the decrease in the trust fund that the increase is so significant. I should have had that, the history of our, let's just stop there for a minute and Tim, go to page 3 with the table. As you can move it up just a little bit more, right there, perfect. As you'll see, our premium this year increase is unprecedented for the last 9 or 10 years. The highest we've ever had is 7%. And last year was probably, we had one year where we actually went down, and then last year was almost flat. So over that time period, our increase has been below market at 4%. The increase this year of 18.2, and I've got an asterisk because it's still just a estimate. Our estimated average over that time period is, even with that 18%, is about 5.47. And so while it hurts, while it doesn't feel good, all of those things that we don't like, the good news is our increase over this time period is still reasonable in that it's 5.47%. Tim, go back to page 2, please. I mentioned this earlier, but we are hoping this is a one-time occurrence, an anomaly, and not a new trend. We've always been able to maintain lower claim costs. Our expectations from Blue Cross Blue Shield tend to be very accurate or reliable. This year, we are running at 116% what they expected us to be running at. So generally, we run about 97, 98, 99, 101, 102, 103, somewhere between there. This year, we are at 116% of their expectations. Again, it is very, very unusual. So right now, the increase is expected to be about 18.2%, or approximately 1.3 million. Of that, about 1.2 million is the district's portion. In our financial projection model that I did in December, I always use 5% as a placeholder. And again, if you look at that chart, that generally covers us very well. For this year, that would have been about a $440,000 increase. So the spread between 1.2 million and 440,000 is about 760,000 difference, unexpected. So at this time, what questions does the board have about the renewal? Because what I want, the next section talks about a potential way to mitigate. So before, and by the way, I didn't start my presentation with this, but I'm not asking the board to approve anything tonight. I want to give you the information, answer any questions you have, and then the insurance committee is meeting one more time, and then I'll bring back the recommendation. I can explain that more after the next section. But again, at this time, let me stop. What questions do you have on the section labeled renewal information?
I have two random thoughts that go together, and I don't know, I don't presume we would know these tonight, but are you able to tell if any of the increased claims are things that would continue into next year? You know, does Blue Cross Blue Shield know anything about those sorts of things that little I know that some medical things would continue? Like, is that anything that we could get our hands around? And then do they do any projections that would help us understand if things went to their normal, if they're usually 97, 98% accurate, when our trust balance would be back to the 3 months or whatever? I just don't even have a feel for, are we thinking that's September? You know, are we thinking that takes a whole year? Just kind of as you were talking, I guess the things that came to my mind to know when our critical points are. Should you be giving us feedback August, September? Are we better off now, you know, the trust fund than we were before? Or is that just too fast to even expect there to be a movement? I don't know. I guess that's where my head is.
Sure. The first answer to the question is yes. That's actually the piece of data that the insurance committee is waiting for from Blue Cross and from Hub, is to identify without telling us who people are, because the insurance committee doesn't want to know, nor do they ever know whose claims are whose. But what we do want to know is exactly your question, Shauna, about how many of those large claims can we expect are ongoing versus did somebody break an arm or have a knee surgery, something that once it's fixed, it's fixed. So we are waiting to receive that information. So yes, that information can and is available. With regard to the projections on the trust fund and how long it will take, I would say that, first of all, the insurance committee monitors that on a regular basis, primarily monthly, but a regular basis. Your board report, the treasurer's report, includes the trust fund balance on a monthly basis. So I can point that out to you. It's on page 6 of the monthly treasurer's report. It's called the KEBTF. It's one single page, and you can see what's happening in there each and every month. With regard to how long it will take to build it back up, that's going to truly depend on the claims that come in. And so if claims go down, trust fund goes up. If claims go up, trust funds go down. I would say that you're looking minimally at, call it December, 6 months, and then beyond that. Generally, it doesn't move the entire way over 1 month. We generally see movement this past year, I would say around $100,000 the wrong way. So you can expect it to go back that way as well.
So Dr. Fuchs, should we look again or reconsider our practice of when there's a lot in that fund, refunding people part of their premiums? It seems to me that we should maybe not ever do that and just let that build in case we have an issue like this.
That is that's a practice that is always determined typically in the springtime when we do the renewal and we measure where are we. Typically when we do that, we either do one payroll or two, give or take $300,000 to $600,000. Last time it was just one payroll. That is a possibility that the board doesn't want to do anymore. That isn't a decision that you will be making tonight or for this renewal, but it is certainly something that we can consider moving forward. The thing is, though, is both the employees and the district benefits when you are able to have a premium holiday. So
how does the district benefit? I get the employee.
Same way that the employee does. So each payroll, the district puts in a portion of money from our budget into the trust fund, and the employee does as well. And so that when you have a premium holiday, the district doesn't have to contribute. But Teresa, that certainly is something to consider. What I would say though is, I don't know how large you would want to go beyond the recommended 3 to 4 months. So, but when we get built back up, we can certainly have those conversations and decide maybe we want to go to 4, 5, or 6 months. But that's certainly something that we all can discuss at that time.
Yeah, and is it an individual thing anyway? We vote? We vote on the renewal, so we can, and if I remember right, we vote on whether or not to have the premium holidays. So we could,
Right.
That is
we could have more control over that just with an individual vote.
You have complete control over it. The purview of the insurance committee is to study it and advise or recommend to the board. But the board always has the opportunity to vote the manner in which they decide.
Okay.
And Julianne, annually, that would be, if that situation comes up again, that would be something that would always come back about this time of the year in the spring, correct? After the numbers have been evaluated for the year?
Absolutely. We typically don't do it any sooner because you never know what's going to happen in the winter or any other time. So yeah, we typically would do it around the renewal.
I think this question's appropriate for now. Are we getting charged for all the coronavirus stuff, or is that not going to fall into our costs?
With regard to the coronavirus, we were mandated, hang on one second. With regard to the coronavirus, we were mandated to waive costs to employees for diagnosis and testing. So if we have anybody on our plan that's required diagnosis or testing for corona, the plan will pay for that. At this time, it's too early to tell how many and how much, but we are watching for that. We were also mandated to lift restrictions on refills for prescriptions. And so some of our members may be receiving prescriptions now through 90 days through the mail order program. And so there may be some costs to that, but that's not really any different. The costs would be that the cost might come sooner because they can get 90 days supplies as opposed to 30 or something.
I guess I was rephrasing. They're telling us we have to do it, but you haven't heard of anything like any of these bailout packages where we're going to get reimbursed or the insurance companies are going to eat our portion of it, something along those lines.
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
I was certainly watching for that. We get regular updates.
All right, we ready for Dr. Fuchs to move on?
Okay, very good. The next section is the specific stop loss. This is one of our insurance coverages that protects the plan or the district. So currently, our insurance plan has an individual out-of-pocket maximum of $1,000 per year for an individual and $4,900 for a family. We have what's called a $145,000 stop loss deductible. So if any individual has a catastrophic event that causes their medical claims to go above $145,000, we have another level of insurance that applies then to that individual. Because out of pocket, they're only going to be maxed out at either $1,000 or $4,900 per family. In the past couple of years, with $145,000.
So from $49,000 to $140,000, that comes out of the trust fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So in the past couple of years, we typically only have 1 or 2, at most 3 employees per year that reach that $145,000. Again, that stop loss protects the trust fund from catastrophic claims. One way in order to mitigate the 18% increase is to increase that stop loss deductible. So the first thing is Mr. Morcos and his team went out to the market to find out who can get us the most economical stop loss insurance. And what he learned was that currently Blue Cross Blue Shield had the most favorable amounts. Please know in the past that we have switched stop loss providers with board votes so that we can continue to get good rates. But currently Blue Cross Blue Shield is offering the best rates. So on the attachment, which would be page 6, it shows where we are. Whoops, I'll wait till Tim gets there. Page 6, please. It shows where we are currently, what our renewal is, and then 2 alternatives. The 2 alternatives would be to increase the stop loss deductible to $175,000 or to increase it to $200,000. If we were to increase it to $175,000, the potential savings would be about $110,000. That savings is dependent on that we would not have more than 3.7 employees reach the stop loss deductible amount at $175,000. Interestingly, if we increase to $200,000, we could save about $205,000 if we didn't have those same 3.7 people get to the $200,000 stop loss deductible. Now, the risk is that you don't know who's going to reach that. The benefit is that we know that chances are good that we probably won't have 3.7, but you just don't know. The way that it saves the plan money is if we decide to increase the stop loss deductible, we would take that $110,000 right off the premiums. So that is about 1% that we could save from that 18.2. It would drop it down approximately to 17, give or take. In the past, we have increased our stop loss deductible approximately every 2 to 3 to 4 years, depending on how it's going. So it's not uncommon to increase the stop loss deductible. The question becomes is, how much do you want to increase it? One concern about increasing it to the full $200,000 is that once you increase it, the carriers make it difficult or expensive to go backward. So it might be a more prudent manner to just increase it to the 175 and make sure that we're comfortable with that with regard to how many people hit that stop loss. Because once if we get over 3.7 people that hit the stop loss next year, there won't be any savings. That's the break-even point. So Shauna, that piece of data that you had asked about with regard to the high claims and about how many and what does it look like, the prognosis for some of them, will they reach the stop loss deductible again next year? That is the data that the insurance committee is waiting for from HUB, which they get it from Blue Cross Blue Shield, in order to make a recommendation to the board with their recommendation on the stop loss deductible. Without having that information, the general consensus right now is to do the $175,000, which would say about $110,000 to the plan, assuming that we do not hit that 3.7 people to the stop loss deductible. Once we get the data, I anticipate getting a vote from the committee so that at the May 11th board meeting, I can bring the board a recommendation on the stop loss proposals. At this time, are there any questions on stop loss?
Dr. Fuchs, can you explain why you said, once you go up too high that the carriers make it difficult to go backwards? That kind of seems pretty cruddy of them. So I'm wondering, do you have more details on that? Why do they do that? I mean, I know they just want the money, but what's the deal?
You know what? I don't have a specific answer for that question tonight. However, I would be happy to get that and include it either in a Friday update or on the May 11th recommendation.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I guess I'm not getting we're going to save $110,000 to up the coverage $40,000, but yet if we get one more person sick, we're lost. I'm not seeing the benefit.
I think the 3.7 is like the difference between 145,000 and 175,000 is 30,000. So if you do that 3.7 times, you get to the 110,000 savings. So they're trying to say if you have no one over.
Yeah, but you've got how much 400 and some employees, we're playing the odds of one person.
But if one person is at 170,000 and the current thing, the district would pay 145 or the trust would pay 145. And in the new thing, we would be exposed to that 25,000. But if you save 110 and you're only exposed to 25, you're still money ahead, but it depends on how many of those.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, you got that. Yeah.
I just don't know that I don't know that I agree with the decision that we should take the risk.
So sorry.
I think we need the information.
Having this meeting, especially when you just got done telling us our trust fund levels are below recommended amounts.
It seems like we need that information on stop loss that the committee's waiting for.
Yeah.
We do. In the meantime, take a look at the break-even claim numbers below the solid bar there. The first row shows from July of 18 to June of 19. During that time period, on average, we had 3.9. So if we were to use that time period, we wouldn't come out ahead in this risk. However, if you take a longer time period, July 1 of 16 through June 30th of 19, over that time period, it's only 1.3 that went to the stop loss. And each of them that did got to those other levels. The benchmark for these levels are 3, 2, and 1.6. So it just gives you some data in addition to the data that we're waiting for. But please know, even though we're going to get data with some guesstimates from Blue Cross Blue Shield on prognosis, that's not to say you're not going to have somebody else come up with something next year that nobody knew about. So just be careful with thinking that, well, you told us that this, nobody knows. That's part of the challenge.
And is our group of employees on whole getting older or younger?
Well,
because older people tend to have more claims.
Right, older.
So as the population ages, I guess that's where I'm going with that thought.
We still have quite a young population, but with that being said, it's the young population that continue to add dependence to the plan.
Yeah, but we're not really worried about dependence in this portion of the discussion. We're talking about risk of high claims.
Well, dependent can have a high claim also.
Well, granted, you're right.
So it's not just the employee.
Good point, Gail.
Is it possible that we saw such an increase because with all the people that are taking that kind of flocked toward retirement, that they're getting things done before they are off, and on to Medicare or something like that? Is there any kind of something like that in play?
No, these are truly, these are truly unusual situations. There may be one on there, but these are claims that are greater than 50,000. Typically in a year, we would only have maybe 10. This year we have 18. And then we've got a couple that have already gone over the stop loss at 145. Yeah, it's an unusual year. I'm hopeful that it's an anomaly and nothing more.
Especially for the health of the employees.
Yes.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
First and
Exactly.
foremost.
All right. Let's carry on then. At the next meeting, when I have a recommendation from the committee, I'll include that in the board report with our recommendation for the board to make a decision. So we've already gone over on page 3, the table of the health insurance premium increase. So the other part then is the tier structure. Quickly, our multipliers did not change this year. And so you can see how the multipliers are used to price the premiums. The multipliers don't change the amount that the district pays or the employee pays. What it does is it changes the amount that the various employees pay based on their category. Are there any questions on the tiers? Okay, the next big topic, board spent quite a few meetings discussing high deductible health insurance plans with combined with a health savings account. That was at the board's request. The health savings account only comes with a high deductible plan. At this time, the committee voted 10-2, not in favor of adding this type of plan option to the district. There were a variety of reasons, but before I go into those, I would ask that we educate the board on all the various things about the plans that we learned and looked at. And so what I would want to know is if the board desires to have me and or the administration prepare a specific board topic on the health savings account and high deductible plans. Again, the other thing I would say is the board does not need to vote on a high deductible plan at the May 11th meeting with the renewal. At this time, this is the perfect time of the year though, if we're going to add it, we would want to state that we're going to do so, because what we would plan to do then is implement it January 1, and then in the fall, educate the employees, and they would sign up for it at the open enrollment in October, November. So the board would direct us to add it. It would only be an additional choice for the employees. It cannot replace the current PPO, as the PPO at this time has been negotiated. So you can add plans, but you cannot independently take away the benefits that the employees currently have without negotiating. And then once on May 11th, that's when I would recommend that we do the education and the discussion on the high deductible plan. And then following that, then make a decision depending on what the board would choose to do. But at this time, the committee is not recommending it. They feel that the current plan serves the employees well. They did state that they are interested in helping the districts to save money in health insurance, and will begin in the fall to look for other ways in which to do so. Some of those ways we've looked at before, but we will revisit in order to do the due diligence from the committee And I guess that's basically what the committee shared. Actually, there's one other thing that they shared, and that is they believe that there are better ways in which people can save money than the house savings account. That was one of the concerns that they brought forward with why they're not recommending it.
So were you thinking the education of the board would be like a, like Hub would come and kind of discuss HSAs and high deductible plans? Is that what you're thinking?
I am. I'm thinking that I could do it, but I think that they probably would do a better job at answering some of your specific questions, primarily because they have that experience and that expertise.
Yeah, because I mean, I would like to see the information. I don't know, saving the money in the health savings account isn't the main purpose. It's not like, hey, have a high deductible account so you get this money in your savings account. Of course you can save it other ways, and you know, it lowers costs. So, but it's not always, you know, I fear that sometimes that they're just thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to raise my deductible and I'm not going to get anything else for it. And that's not necessarily how high deductible plans work.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see what a high deductible plan has to benefit both the employee and the district for it to even be a viable option. And I don't know how it was presented or what you discussed. So yeah, I'd like more information so I can make an educated decision.
Meg, Aaron, are you guys good with that? Pedro? I can't see you guys. If you're nodding, I can't see you.
Oh, there we go.
Good.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. So I guess that's good for so is that what you need, Julianne? Maybe plan that for the next meeting?
I'd be happy to.
Is that something, does it need to be the next meeting, or is it something we can wait till we can actually see someone in person?
You know what, Ryan, at this point we could wait, but I wouldn't recommend it because it may take the board a couple different conversations in order to make a decision if they want to go against the recommendation of the insurance committee. And so given the timeline, I would definitely want a decision made by end of summer at latest. And we only have we have 2 board meetings in May, 1 in June and 1 in July. So I don't want to put it off too long, because then we're back to, well, we'll have to wait a year.
Okay.
So this really is a timely.
Fair enough.
We pay and collect. So our renewal is July 1. But our deductibles start over in January 1. So our renewal lines up with our fiscal year, but we pay our premiums a month in advance. So once the board approves the renewal in May, we're going to switch payroll for June to pay for July premiums. So that's another piece of the puzzle that makes it time sensitive. Now, if people sign up for this high deductible plan because the board chooses to implement it, they will pay their premiums in December for a January 1 program.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I will plan accordingly for next meeting. The next part is the ACA update. Currently, there's not a lot happening with that, but the COVID update has really been the update that we've been provided. The ACA has been pretty calm in the last year per se. Again, I will bring a full recommendation from the Health Insurance Committee. I basically talked you through everything tonight that you'll be seeing to give you kind of a preview. We're waiting on the data that Shauna asked for. And then in conclusion, I do want to thank our Health Insurance Committee members. They are very diligent in the work that they do with regard to communicating to the building members, getting feedback, trying to institute healthy habits amongst our employees, which I believe is one reason why up until this year, we've been really healthy. And so thank them for their work in our committee, as well as our brokers hub, Stephen Marcos and Deb and Stephanie. It's a team that we've had together now for a little over a year or two. And again, they are always prepared for our meetings, provide us with the data, allow us to ask questions. We send them back for more information. They bring it back and it gives us the opportunity to discuss it. So I'm thankful for each of the pieces that we all play in this process. There is no decision or recommendation for tonight. So President Sparber, unless if there are further questions, my presentation is concluded.
Anything else, or are we good for next time? All right, we will move on to the superintendent report.
Yeah, I just have, thank you, President Sparber. I just have two for tonight. First of all, the Hall of Fame, if you recall, the Hall of Fame committee, as we talked about earlier, meets and determines 3 or 4 or 5 inductees per year, how they're going to be recognized and when they'll be recognized. Unfortunately, this year, due to COVID-19, the events that we have all been postponed the way we currently have them planned in person. So students will be recognized, but we thought about the inductees. And so what we've done instead is we've postponed the inductee ceremonies until further notice in June. On June 3rd is when the Hall of Fame committee will meet again, and then we'll determine at that time how we're going to recognize our inductees. Whether we do something virtually over the summer or if we wait into the fall, there's always that consideration we can do too. While at this time I wouldn't probably want to wait all the way till spring for these same events, I think we can probably try to find a way in the fall to recognize our deserving inductees. But again, on the June 3rd is when we'll discuss that. And then the other one I had previously mentioned too, the foundation. On the 21st of May, we'll be having our next meeting in which we will continue to look at the engagement activity moving forward to try to have the foundation be a more viable option for fundraising and generating revenue. And with that, the other part of the foundation did agree to approve grants for this year going into next fall. So the grant application process is open right now and we're looking for grants. And then on the 21st, when we meet, the board will consider the foundation, the foundation board will consider those grants for next year. That way we can purchase the materials and supplies through the foundation to have them in teachers' hands for next fall when we, fingers crossed, are back on site for on-site learning next fall. So those are the 2 updates that I had.
Yes, thank you. I also have 2 updates for tonight. I wanted to let the board know that we continue to distribute approximately 1,200 lunches, snacks, and meals per week. We're doing it still on Mondays and Thursdays, and it's still doing very well. Additionally, we've been contacted by the Kane County Sheriff. The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, I think is what that acronym stands for. They have helicopters that are located at DuPage Airport, and they need some practice at landing in different places. They're asking that if our schools, since they're not in session right now, if they could land on some of our open areas and our parking lots because they're large spaces. We are working to get insurance, and then we are planning to allow them to do so. But we'll make sure that we notify the administration on any days or times that they potentially could be landing on our property. But it's a great partnership, again, where we can help these agencies and they can help us when we need it.
I know nothing about helicopters, but is there anything damaging for it to land on your parking lot? Or is that pretty benign?
I'll have to find that answer unless if somebody else knows it.
I'm sorry, Shauna, to qualify the question, are you talking about if they ruin parking lots by landing on? Is that what you
I just didn't know if our parking lots were, I don't know how heavy helicopters are or structurally, like if most of them would have a pad to go on, if that was the intended purpose. Brian looks like he knows way more about this than me.
No, I don't. I was curious if we were going to do it like Stewart, or because I don't think we'd want to irritate the neighbors.
No, they talked about using Harder and then the high school,
Okay.
and which are both out in the middle, of the front.
Yeah. I presume they know if it's damaging to our parking lot. I was just curious.
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert at all, but my dad flew helicopters for the Army, and that was never an issue.
Never an issue. There you go. There's.
I think also I can reread the memo too, but I think maybe it mentioned open fields is what they were looking for. So they might not even be landing on blacktop.
Parking lot. Yeah.
They said either one, Todd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If it is going to be parking lots, you might want to announce it to the public. People have been gathering in the parking lots for things like birthday parades and sitting in the backs of their vans and chatting to each other with social distancing. So you might want to make sure that, I don't know, there's a sign or something on the days that it's going to happen. I don't know.
Yep. In addition to that, we also wanted to let people know not only for that, but also just that it's not an emergency. It's a planned drill. So when they see a helicopter landing somewhere, it's planned activity as we're working with the sheriff's office.
This might be a dumb question, but is there any way that could be turned into like some kind of learning activity so that students can see it landing and talk about it, like Facebook Live it or something? I don't know if the DEA wants that. I know nothing about the DEA, but I just thought, how cool would it be to see like your helicopter land at your high school, right?
I think part of the reason why they want to practice is because the area is isolated and not with lots of population and students. I can ask them that question, but I'm not expecting to have them jump on board right now. So it's a great question though. It is.
All right. So any topics for future agendas? Nope.
Yes.
Yes, Pedro.
I had mentioned this before, and that is in reference to our supplier that does our graduations, pictures, and what have you to our students, or for our students. I don't know what else they do, but wanted to see if, like any other contract that we're looking at, see if there's opportunities to I guess, allow others to come in if that may be the case.
Julianne, can you give it, if you happen to know offhand, do you have the timeline of the renewal for that vendor?
I do not have that timeline. That's typically left in the hands of the high school because we don't pay. Typically, the parents will pay. Are you talking about like graduation announcements and caps and gowns and things like that?
Whatever it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Typically, the parents pay for that. And so let me find out more about it and get back to you.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. I can either provide that in a weekly update or a memo back to the board.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other good.
I'll do some homework on it.
Any other topics for future agendas?
I don't know if this is a topic. It might be a weekly update or something like that. But a lot of neighbors have been asking me about what we're doing for our seniors. And I know Mrs. Maris put a letter out, and I was just trying to see if we have another plan for what we're going to do for them, because this is obviously a crazy year for them.
I can share that Mrs. Maris and I have been in discussion, and she has some additional news that she's trying to finalize and share this week. So those that can hold on another week, they will get that information, and an update won't be needed because she will provide it.
Awesome. Any other topics for future agendas? All right. And there's no public comment tonight, or there is public comment, but we have none. So we'll move on to executive session. There is no action expected after executive session tonight, so the recording will end. When we go into executive session, we're going to go into executive session for Illinois Code 122C1. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Sure.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye. Sorry.
Mrs. Junk,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Mr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak,
Aye.
Mr. Rivas,
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. So now we'll go into executive session. And Todd, I think we're just holding here while people drop off, right?
Yep, we will.